Stop if you're listening right now and go to the comicbooksyndicate.com website or YouTube and watch the video version of this podcast.
That's right. Now in video, not just audio.
Yes, you can see our faces and our legs.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to TAPED Crusaders, the podcast that reviews every single superhero adaptation ever made. I'm your co-host, Michael, and as always, I'm joined by
Joshua Merville, and today we have the fortune of talking about the 1982 film, The Scarlet Pimpernel.
Pimpernel, yes.
Sure.
So I messaged my Russian roommate about this film, and I told him we were watching The Scarlet Pimpernel, and he said, I am not aware of such word. Ian, have you heard of this character before today?
No. This is one of those circumstances where I learned about the parodies of a property before I learned about the property. I think we're all aware of the Daffy Duck Scarlet Pumpernickel.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. The swashbuckling duck that... it was a very entertaining short, actually, and
I wish I would have rewatched it for this because I remember seeing it as a kid. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I did, and it holds up.
Excellent.
The Scarlet Pimpernel.
That's good to know that holds up.
Well, okay, so first we're going to talk about, you're probably wondering why we are reviewing this film. Ian, were you wondering why we were reviewing this film?
I'm still wondering why.
Okay.
Yeah, I am.
You're still wondering. Okay, so the reason we're reviewing this film, believe me, when I created the master list of characters to discuss, there's a few proto-superheroes, we'll call them, that are on the list that I was unsure about. This one's the earliest, okay? Unless you want to go back to prehistoric times, to Hercules and stuff like that. This is by some people considered the first superhero because he's the first character in fiction to have a secret identity. Okay. And so Stanley himself said that the Scarlet Pimpernel may be considered the first superhero. So in this, it was a play first, then the same person. Do you have the name Baroness, the author of the Baroness Orsi?
Yeah, it's
Orsi. But as you're
Baroness Amuska
Orsi. So she was Hungarian. She was royalty in Hungary. She was deposed because of riots and revolutions. It traveled around, ended up in England, wrote this play, turned it into a novel. Then it was adapted to many a film, many a TV show, many a radio show, yes. This character was around forever. But unfortunately, most modern audiences don't know about this character. Now, because he's called the Scarlet Pimpernel, I expected something along the lines of Green Hornet, where we'd have a guy wearing a red domino mask and a red cape, but that's not the case. We'll get to that in a minute. But this idea of someone avenging evil at night, or in the shadows. In the shadows, yeah. And then by day having a secret identity. In this case, a foppish, airhead playboy type character. That concept, I mean, obviously Superman had a secret identity, but this particular type of identity was kind of used by Batman, right? Bruce Wayne.
Yeah,
right?
It is definitely closer to Batman. It's almost kind of how... It's closer to how Christian Bale almost played it in a way, because he really played up the playboy side of it, and the partying and walking into the bar and buying the place and things like it feels very
always judging his social peers by their cravat.
Right. Yeah.
And I actually wish they did more of that, because that particular scene you mentioned was funny, but I wish he played it up more. Like he was, whatever, but he did a good job. It's not his fault. But I just want to list a couple more things that concepts and tropes that were used in this movie and book. He also had a group of helpers, and I believe they were called the League of Pimpernel?
The League of the Scarlet Pimpernel.
Yeah, the League. So Doc Savage had his, I believe they were called the Furious Five, but that might be a hip hop group.
Fabulous Five?
Yeah, Fabulous Five. I can't remember. Was it the Fabulous Five?
I forget.
I can't remember.
Grandmaster Savage.
Yeah, Grandmaster Savage also originated in the Scarlet Pimpernel novel. And then he also had he has a boat. Instead of a mobile, like a Batmobile, he has a boat. And of course, I cannot remember the name. Maybe you have it in your research notes there. But it does have a name.
I don't remember. It's like the Paradise or something.
Yeah, something like that. Right. So, but again, he does have a costume, which we'll get to later. So those are the reasons we decided to review it for this podcast. Now, The other thing I considered was the quality of the movie. Well, I looked it up on Rotten Tomatoes and, you know, all these IMDb sites, and it had positive reviews everywhere. So I decided, you know what? We're going to review this sucker. And that's why we reviewed The Scarlet Pimpernel. Now, unbeknownst to me, I did not realize it had another connection with comic book movies, which I'm sure you picked up on right away when you noticed the casting of the main villain.
Oh, Ian McKellan.
Ian McKellan, who we all know as Magneto in the X-Men films, as well as Gandalf. Is it Gandalf?
Gandalf, yeah.
Gandalf the White?
The White and the Gray.
And the Gray from Lord of the Rings. Are you familiar with Ian McKellan?
Yes, I am. I'm not really too familiar with his body of work, but I mean, I know he exists. I can pick him out of a lineup.
There you go. Okay, so it was kind of cool.
I know he hugs Patrick Stewart in an internet meme.
Yes, a lot. Yes, they're good buddies. Also, Jane Seymour, who I know because she used to have that TV show in the 90s.
Not familiar.
I don't remember what it was called.
Well.
She was a doctor. Again, we refuse to do research. It's all off the top of our heads. So that's what you get going in. Also, it was a made-for-TV movie. This was not theatrical. But the director was fairly well established, I guess as part of the British New Wave. So I'm not going to say anything else because now we're going to jump over to our Mr. Memory over here, Champion.
I would like to take this opportunity to announce that I'm leaving the podcast.
Okay.
Thanks for watching.
I enjoyed the film, but I also don't remember anything about it. But Ian, you can give us the 140 character summary of the plot of this film.
The X, formerly known as Twitter version.
Yeah, exactly.
You see, all right, I watched this movie this afternoon, and I don't remember it. It made so little an impression on me. But we start off with, we're in the middle of the French Revolution.
Yes.
And aristocrats are being hauled out of jail cells and brought to the guillotine, where they are being systematically beheaded. But there is also this group of Englishmen who are heroically trying to save the French aristocracy. Okay.
A controversial idea, but yes.
Yeah.
Well, this is, I don't know when this was written in the...
I think it was the late 1800s.
Late 1800s?
Or 1905-ish, around there, yeah.
Okay.
But this script was written in the 80s.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know.
The me decade, but yeah.
So these heroic Englishmen are saving the French aristocracy. Initially, there's after a beheading, they're loading some corpses up onto a coffin cart, and there's some weird-looking cart driver who's arguing that he wants this body. They stack it on top. He goes off to wherever. Turns out that he is one of the Scarlet Pimpernel's... No, he is actually the Scarlet Pimpernel.
Yes, right.
In disguise. And he is using this corpse as a decoy to ferry some live aristocrats out of prison in the caskets that are underneath this corpse. And they show the person at the gate of the castle, hey, look, I got a head here. And he tosses it to him like a football. Hilarity ensues, and they say, get out of here. So he escapes with these aristocrats in these coffins. So we learn that this is happening. Now, subsequently, we meet... Oh, who is it? It is a Marguerite... I forget all these French names.
Actress, yeah.
The actress.
Saint
Just. Saint Just. And her brother starts with an A, Antoine?
No. Geez, we should do research.
Yeah, we should. I remembered all this stuff a minute ago.
It's not Antoine,
it's Armand.
Yes, Armand.
So Armand is beaten up by some people, and Scarlet Pimpernel rescues him. And through him, he meets Marguerite, who is the greatest actress in all of France. They fall quickly in love, but she is betrothed to marry one of the sort of the lieutenants in... It's Maximilien Robespierre, who's one of the leaders of the French Revolution, who's decapitating all these people. So she's to marry one of his henchmen, Paul Chauvelin. So he has been tasked to find who the Scarlet Pimpernel is. Now, the Scarlet Pimpernel is his alter ego is the Baron Percy Blake something.
Blakeney.
Blakeney.
Sir Percy Blakeney.
Sir Percy Blakeney, and he is this airhead, dandy, foppish, cravated wearing. He's got this little monocle on a stick that he always looks through. Ridiculous. He immediately falls in love with Marguerite, and for some reason she's smitten with him as well, even though he's got this awful, terrible persona, which at first he flips back and forth between his actual, like he's actually not this person. He's just this dashing aristocrat type. But she falls for him anyway, despite him flipping back and forth between these two personalities with no explanation. So Armand is enlisted to help him. He reveals his identity to Armand because he has access to the prison where the heir apparent to the French throne is being held. The 8-year-old Louis something or other, little kid, another little dandy, and he's trying to rescue this young heir to the throne to shepherd him away. They're just going to send him to Austria or something. So Armand, how does it go from here? He arranges to have the guards changed at the prison so that they can sneak in and steal the prince out.
And they basically is this where they put him inside a?
They put him inside a basket,
and then they have like the fake coffins, or was that earlier? I don't remember.
The fake coffins was earlier.
They're basically smuggling them out past guards, and they're using other disguises.
This is a recurring theme in this film: smuggling people past the same guard every single time. Which is the only funny part of the film. It's like he just is this bumbling guard.
Yeah, and using like, one time he has the plague, another time he's just whatever.
Yeah, like an old woman.
Yeah, like this tricking these guards, and it's it's played for laughs, but they manage to get past every time.
Yeah.
And then
while all this is happening, oh my goodness, his name again, Chauvelin, he frames Marguerite.
Yes.
By forging her name to an order to arrest the people that, like the entire family of the people that beat up her brother earlier, and they're all put to death.
Including the children. Right.
And Scarlet Pimpernel learns of this, and he automatically assumes that his now wife, Marguerite, is responsible for this, so they become estranged, despite the fact that he doesn't ask her, talk to her, or anything. She doesn't deny doing it. Even when asked, she says, I can't confirm or deny it. So, Armand, where do we go from here? There's the part where they're at the party when they're supposed to meet at midnight. She finds a note.
Right. Yeah. So Armand, or no, what's his name? Bad guy is trying to convince her to.
Ian McKellan.
Ian McKellan is trying to convince her to turn on them and to spy for him. And
yes, and he has Armand in prison, and he is threatening to behead him if she doesn't spy.
Right. So she finds like one of their secret notes, and she intercepts it. She finds out where the Scarlet Pimpernel is going to be meeting some of his like band members, and she goes there early to intercept, to be like, listen, you got to get out of here. Ian McKellan is coming and he's going to kill you. So
and she basically spills to this random person that she believes is a random person, but it's in fact her husband, that no, she didn't.
Yes.
And then the entire
this
time
arrest warrant.
She's talking to him. He's kind of in the shadows, like 10 feet away, whispering to him in his Pimpernel voice. And then at one point she says something like, I don't really believe you're there. How do I know? Like I want to feel your warmth or whatever.
Touch me?
Yeah.
And he comes up, and I think, does he put his hand on her?
On her shoulder.
Right.
And she kind of reaches up and touches his hand, and she feels his ring.
Right.
Which she later discovers that it's him by going home to their study, and she's looking up at a painting of him. She sees the ring, and she has this revelation, and she looks.
When every piece of like historical whatever has that flower, the Scarlet Pimpernel.
The Scarlet Pimpernel.
It's everywhere. Maybe it's him.
And at the same time, Ian McKellen finds her earring in the room when he goes into the library to intercept what's going on, and Percy is there, the Pimpernel, and he is pretending to sleep. So he puts it together that Percy is the Scarlet Pimpernel.
Does he put it together at that point?
I don't think he does. No.
At that point, no.
Ian McKellan?
Yeah.
No, he doesn't know until the climax.
Yeah. No, because he's got. Though I don't know exactly. I think that at that point he just realizes that she was there,
right,
and that she's working with. Although I mean, it seems weird that he would be that suspicious of finding her earring there when her husband is there currently. Like, what were you? Whatever. This is taking forever.
So yeah, I mean, we can skim some of the details, but basically, they end up capturing him, the good guy,
Pimpernel,
the Pimpernel, not knowing he's the Pimpernel. Mm-hmm. They trick him into being captured.
Well, he goes back to rescue Armand, and then he's sort of led into a trap.
Right.
He offers the location of the heir apparent to the French throne, this little kid, in exchange for various people's lives. He says, well, the only way I'm going to agree to this is if I show you myself. Mm-hmm. So he brings them all there, but he's already warned them, and they've ferried him off to Austria. So they find that the bird has flown when they get there. And he Ian McKellen orders the Pimpernel killed. They all bring him outside. There's a firing squad.
But he still doesn't know he's Pimpernel, right?
Still doesn't know he's Pimpernel at this point. But it turns out that the Pimpernel's men have basically mugged McKellen's soldiers, taken their uniforms, and they only pretended to execute them. So then there's a sword fight afterwards. The Pimpernel wins, but doesn't kill him. He just says, I'm just going to let a Robespierre deal with you instead. And then they escape on a yacht.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty much it. Yeah, happy ending. And then that's also the point where he reveals that he's the Scarlet Pimpernel, and that's also where she found out earlier, right? So Ian McKellen's been outsmarted. The good guys win. The aristocracy wins. The poor lose, right? That's the way we like it. But I maybe I'm gonna be the odd man out here, but I actually did enjoy this film. As a 1980s like family adventure film, and then using your imagination to how it would look in 4K rather than 280p, which is how we watched it on YouTube. Yeah. Did you watch it on YouTube?
No, I found the highest quality version that I could, which was a DVD version.
Okay, still better than what we saw. I'm assuming you watch YouTube, right? Yeah. So anyway, using my imagination, I actually thought the directing was good. Like I paid attention to the compositions of the shots. They were good. I thought the acting was good for the most part. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed the plot. It was too long. It could have been 90 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. The lead actor, I didn't love him. He was basically doing a Saturday Night Live like character.
Yeah, Anthony Andrews.
But other than that, I didn't really have an issue with it. Josh, what did you think?
Yeah, I think that the length of the movie and the kind of meandering around and kind of the repeat plot points, like we've already established that, look, what the Scarlet Pimpernel is doing. Right. Sneaking these people out of France, and it just keeps happening over and over again, and the like shenanigans they're getting into just aren't funny. Like, I'm not even sure they would be funny in the 80s. Like, I don't think it's like a
or in 1905.
Yeah, I don't think it's like a not holding up thing. I think it's just kind of not great, especially with the tone of the rest of the movie. Like, it's trying to be kind of serious, and then at times it's just absolutely like slapstick humor. Like not slapstick, but like.
Well, these characters that he plays are over the top and not really funny at all.
And the guard that he's constantly arguing with at the gate is just, a cartoon character. Yeah. So I don't know. I didn't love it. I didn't realize until now, though, that it was a made-for-TV movie, and that definitely makes sense, because it doesn't even feel like a great movie for the 80s. It does feel a little low quality at times, but some of the acting is great. Ian McKellen is fantastic.
Of course, always. Jane Seymour's great.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's stuff that was really good about the movie, but I think as a whole, I don't know. I feel like it, you know what it kind of felt like? It felt like an adaptation of a play.
Well, that's what
it really did feel like a kind of a crummier version of seeing it on I would actually like to see that as a stage play. I think it would be way more fun than watching the movie for sure.
Okay. Yeah. Fair points. Ian, what's your take?
Well, it wasn't awful. It wasn't awful considering what it is. A 1982 made-for-TV movie. I thought that this was an actual film as well until I started to notice like where the act breaks were
commercial
happening.
breaks.
That's fair. Yeah.
It was very much cut for TV, and that was probably the reason behind some of the extended length of it too. They had this long of a time slot to fill up. So guys, give us this much material. So they edited for the time slot. They didn't edit for pacing or for storytelling. That being said, it did get a little repetitive. Where I had problems were with there's so many characters that were a part of the film for a minute and then they'd disappear and then maybe they'd come back 45 minutes later and I have no idea who the hell these people are. It seemed a little convoluted, like trying to, like everyone is being sneaky and you don't know who everyone's side is on at the beginning, and it's like, who am I supposed to be following here? And it just...
Well, here's one thing that contributed to that. It was all English actors with English accents playing some English and some French characters.
I think that was definitely a confusing part of this, is that everybody had like a very strong English accent.
Yeah.
Even Percy had like a cartoonish English accent. Like it wasn't even it's the character was putting on a performance, but he was like putting on a funny English performance.
Right.
Weird. But he's also an English actor, and I had to look that. I'm pretty sure he is. I had to look that up.
Yeah.
Like, is he an actual English actor? I believe
so.
And he is.
Yeah.
But it seemed almost as though he was an American actor doing a ridiculous English accent.
Yeah.
And like, would it have been so hard to get just some French actors, at least for the main roles, or put on some phony French accents, right? It would have helped, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and as far as everyone looking the same, I mean, the people, like, I couldn't tell who's who and who's bad and who's good, and I don't know. I mean, a little bit of that is that I'm not overly familiar with the era, so I don't know if there was a difference between how French people dressed and English. I don't know. Was there a difference in the movie? I don't know. But to me, they all blended together as one big group. You know what I mean? I don't know. I guess, like you said, though, it is based on a play, so it was a lot of like people just kind of talking to each other, not a lot of action, which was fine, but they still could have adapted that a little bit for entertainment value. You know what I mean? But yeah, it was one of those movies where as I was watching it, I was thinking, okay, I actually think, other than Superman, of all the movies we've watched so far, this felt the most like a normal movie versus like Swamp Thing or Doc Savage or Flash Gordon or Buck Rogers or almost anything. So it did feel like a normal movie, but it did feel like a TV movie.
Yeah, it's a pretty low bar. It did feel like a movie, but...
It was a movie. It had illumination, it had sound, it had Foley,
This is the culmination of all this analysis. It was a movie.
Yes.
Very cheesy music. Like it's,
Sure.
I don't know. It was, I think, more just boring than anything for me.
I think, well, in my opinion, it might have been flat, a little bit flat, but not boring. Like that last half of Swamp Thing was painfully boring. This was more just like I could kind of take it or leave it. Like I was watching it and enjoying it, but if I got up and I don't want to advocate this during a movie, but if I got up and like got a drink and came back, I know I wasn't missing much. Put it that way, I guess the other question is, okay, let's talk about the character of the Scarlet Pimpernel. I mean, other than the fact that he may be the first superhero, what do we think about this character? I mean, we pointed out earlier, he's helping. I mean, in 2023, think about this idea. He's helping the billionaires of the day.
Yeah, he's sneaking Elon Musk.
Yeah, he's sneaking Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg out of France to bring them to the safe haven of England, which is seems a little backward. But it's funny because when you apply that, there's been this idea going around on the internet for the last few years about Batman, about how if he just invested Bruce Wayne's money into social services and all this, he'd probably do a lot more good for Gotham. And I always I'm tired of that meme. But there is some truth to it, and it is sort of funny that that's what the premise of this film is. Ian, what do you think of that?
Well, it's the product of a different time, and I don't that sort of thing. You wouldn't be able to sell that today,
sure, because
people would look at it as being ridiculous. I don't know if people were nearly as socially aware,
sure, back
in the '80s, like how the French Revolution. The aristocracy, that was not a good thing, right? They were trying to clear away some pretty terrible elements of their society. So to have a superhero that is advocating for the French throne of the time, it seems a little backwards.
Well, we should point out the author was literally royalty. She was a baroness. Like, that is royalty. That is royal blood. And it was an English novel, which still to this day has a king, right? So it's not an American idea. It's a specifically English novel. So I can understand in that culture it would make sense for him to be doing what he did, but to us it doesn't.
Yeah, it almost feels like with one small little change, it could be fine even. Yeah. Like maybe he believes in some of the ideals, but doesn't agree with how they're doing it. Like,
sure. Yeah,
of course it's awful that they're killing the children of these like royals and not like, giving these people like fair trials and everything. They're just, you know what? I think you're pretty bad, so I'm going to, publicly execute you. Obviously that part is terrible. So
maybe that's the change you make right there, though. You just like
right. Like
he's saving the children.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so everything else is.
Or he saves the whole family and brings them to England and says, "Okay, there you go work in the coal mines with everybody else."
Right. Or like maybe rewrite history a little bit and maybe give them like fair trials in another country or something. I don't know. It felt
do it Tarantino, right? And rewrite history to suit your
a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't. I like the idea of him maybe like. Obviously, the idea of like a alter ego is great. I even kind of like how he's like a pompous like. Flamboyant guy that you wouldn't really suspect being this mastermind sneaking these people away. Like that's I mean it's Robin Hood, right?
Sure. Yeah. A little bit of that, yeah. But also the scene where the guy insults his wife and he doesn't do anything is absolutely something that like Clark Kent would do. Clark Kent would be like, oh, well, whatever, which is kind of like disappointing to Lois Lane. But in the Superman comics, that's why Lois doesn't love Clark. She loves Superman. But in this movie, she does love this guy. So yeah, that part didn't add up, especially with the way the actor was playing him, right? It didn't quite make sense.
Well, it didn't make any sense at all.
No.
It didn't make any sense at all.
No.
Because she fell in love with him while he was pretending to be this over-the-top dandy.
Right.
Yeah, it would have been almost better if they hadn't gotten married until the end when she does find out who he really is, and maybe she doesn't like Percy, but has like some encounters with Pimpernel, and she like is in love with this, swashbuckling hero.
Yeah.
Which would also make sense, like why, like in the sense that she was able to betray Percy,
right?
But then she turned around and risked it to warn the Scarlet Pimpernel.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about what we would do to improve the film.
Right.
Would a red cape and a red domino mask help the character, Ian? What do you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely. That was one big thing that I thought was missing from this film. Particularly because when you pitch this, you're like, this is the first superhero with a secret identity. And he did wear costumes, but his costumes were all like trying to trick people into thinking that he was some low caste kind of, I'm a grave hauler or I've got the plague or something like that. He didn't have a superhero identity, which is kind of what I was expecting.
Right.
Now, if he had if there were some scenes of him kicking ass,
Sure.
with not necessarily a mask, but I don't know. I'm thinking of the Daffy Duck, Scarlet Pimpernel, where he's got that Zorro cap with
Yes.
the feather and that trailing whatever jacket, and he's just got the sword. And
Sure.
that would have made for a more visually interesting sword fight at the end. The sword fight at the end was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
It
in my
was
opinion.
good, yeah.
Especially, I was giggling a little bit at the part where he was just toying with him, and he'd like slice a button off his
Yes.
shirt,
Yeah.
and
That's great.
undo his cravat. That was a nice touch. If there was more of that,
I think if it was remade today, they'd probably give him a red jacket or a red cape or something just to identify him, right?
Yeah, they would definitely make him more of a swashbuckler.
Right.
Like,
You have to be able to market that.
a logo with a Pimpernel flower.
Yes, exactly.
yeah, because the whole end scene when they're on the island, I thought was pretty well done.
Yeah.
Like I actually really liked it. I liked the twist of the guards being like swapped in that castle.
Yes.
And the fake out of the execution.
That was great.
Him coming back as a ghost, the sword fight.
Yeah, I like that little bit where he introduced him, Ian McKellan, to like, would you like to meet your soldiers?
Yeah.
And I got to point out, I like the fact that he didn't kill them. He just tied them up. He just inconvenienced them for a little while, right? Because it just shows how it was a different time. Like, if that story was written today, he would have put his sword through their eyeballs and poked their brains out. You know, these things are different now. But yeah, I like that. Like, it's a light, family adventure story. I like that. I thought that was cool.
Aside from all the beheadings at the beginning.
Except for that part.
Yeah.
But
Tossing the corpse's head to
Toss it
guard.
at somebody's head. Yeah.
True, but those were the bad guys, right? According to this movie. So yeah. I don't know.
No, they were the good guys.
They were,
according to this movie.
To this movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, the
People
people that were,
beheading?
The people who were beheaded were the.
Oh yeah, those were the good guys.
the
But the people
aristocrats.
doing the beheading were the bad guys. Yes. So here's the thing. I gotta say, I will give this film a mild recommendation. If you can find a better copy than the one that's on YouTube, I think it's actually a pretty good film. It is a little long, but especially for historical reasons, I think it's worth watching. Josh,
It's a
what do you
little
think?
over 2.5. It was like about 2.5 hours. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
I don't know if I would recommend the movie. If somebody watched it and enjoyed it, sure. I don't know. I just don't think it was my thing.
Cup of tea?
Yeah, but I think a version of this could be good.
Well, there's plenty of other ones out there, so maybe we'll add them to the slate, right? There you go.
Sure.
Ian, do you recommend this film?
Well, I see. All right. I didn't hate it.
Sure.
I didn't enjoy it. There were parts of it that were, fine. And I understand that it's maybe of some historical interest.
Sure.
But life is finite. We only have so long to live. And do you really want to spend 2 hours, 15 minutes of your finite lifespan watching this 1982 made-for-TV adaptation of The Scarlet Pimpernel? I'm going to say there's probably better things to do with your time.
Could be.
Maybe watch the Scarlet Pumpernickel short instead,
Yeah.
which
I'm going to.
has an equally good sword fight at the end of it. Plus, there's a volcano eruption, and there's flooding, and all sorts of other calamities.
Oh, that sounds great.
Right?
I'll be checking that out when I get home.
Are we reviewing that next week?
I hope so, yeah. I haven't checked the schedule. But
Yeah, watch that instead. Save a bunch of time. If you find yourself with nothing to do, right? Like, say you're laid up with an illness and you can't leave the house, and you're flipping through TV, and the only thing that's on is the Scarlet Pimpernel movie. Yeah, give it a watch.
put it on while you're doing laundry, while you're washing the dishes, right? Have it on in the background.
Trying to
not a
fall
bad idea
asleep.
either.
Trying to fall asleep. There you go. So guess what? That wraps up our review of the Scarlet Pimpernel, possibly the first superhero. Maybe in other episodes of this show you'll find out other possible...
Possibly the first supervillain, depending on your politics.
Yes, look at that.
Okay.
There you go. Historically significant, if only for that. But next episode, we are going back to the well. We're going to be reviewing Superman 3 with Jordan Krug joining us again. So be sure to watch that episode. And also always be sure to watch episodes of Slam as well as our movie reviews on Comic Book Syndicate. want to thank Champion for letting us film here at Meteor.
Thanks so much.
Oh, we are a meteor, aren't we?
Yes, we are. And I want to thank Joshua Mervell. And Josh, you can take it from here.
Yeah, thank you guys so much as well for listening to the podcast. You can find all of our stuff over on our website at thecomicbooksyndicate.com. You can also find our stuff over on YouTube and Facebook, all those sorts of good things. We, as you may be seeing right now, we've slowly started shifting back to video podcasts.
Yes.
So if you're looking to see our faces, or for our comic book podcast, if you want to see kind of a visual representation of what we're talking about at the time, you can find all of our stuff on our YouTube channel as well. Leave us a comment, leave us a review, let us know what you guys think about the stuff we're talking about, and yeah, keep in touch. Let's keep that comics conversation going.
That's right. And so until the next time, see you later.